with me in the classroom. I had to make some last minute change to this from my office to my living room, because despite my efforts to correct it, the line seemed to be unstable, and I really prefer to do this change at the beginning of the session rather than somewhere in the middle, while I keep working on it. So all should be fine from here. Hello, Cyprus. Well, hello, everybody that's present here with me in the classroom, anybody that will be listening through the translation room, and the whole lot that will simply later download and listen to the recording. I'm very happy to have had such a nice response of people interested in having this first class, free access to it. It can give you a sense of my style in dealing with the knowledge, and it gives me a chance also to share with all of you the spirit of this course that I'm doing now for the, I don't even remember exactly if this is the 5th or the 6th edition. But the spirit of, the program is not your life. This is a course that is basically meant to be a reminder. A reminder, particularly, for people in their deconditioning process, that we're living inside a program. Life is a program, and we are just part of that program, and human design simply explains the way that programming takes place mechanically, helplessly. It's not something we can stop. It's not something we can change. It's not something we can be against other than suffering, because, it is the nature of things. The funny thing is that in understanding the nature of things makes accepting the nature of things a lot easier, and when you accept life for what it is, when you accept the human condition for what it is, you do get a chance, your chances broaden to be able to actually see, the best of what being human is all about, because, even if the world does not change, does not get any better, you do get a chance to see your better angels, emerging in your spirit as you learn to live in alignment with the signature of your type. You're in alignment with your own form, in alignment with your strategy and inner authority that provides the consistency and the sense of correctness with which you move in life and with which you represent yourself in interaction with the rest of the world. After all, this is all about the business of awareness, and awareness, is all about, it's all about the way you tell yourself your own story. The way you tell yourself the story of your peace, your satisfaction, or your anger, your frustration, and in which of those two poles do you spend more time? For those of you who are not familiar with my design, it is always nice to, to see the chart of the being that is behind the voice, and in this case, you can also see it behind the appearance. The spirit of this program, this, in the last years, I've changed my approach in how I teach. I looked more for contact and feedback with the students, more direct interaction, more working with their charts, and less time providing just information. And in this year's edition, normally I do this course in 16 sessions around the year, and I do a session every time the sun changes from one Godhead theme to the next. Okay, which I will still be doing. Okay, but with one addition, there will be 4 more sessions, and they will be added for the same cost as in the previous editions. And in those 4 sessions, I will not be teaching. I will be basically, answering questions, using the designs of the people asking as an example, whether it's questions about, how the program impacts you specifically, in how you live out your strategy, your experiment in your own daily life, or if it is, for someone to share and provide their own experience of how, a certain aspect of the program may be impacting them directly, something to which I may be able to add something, or, okay, that, to do this in every session is not possible because I wouldn't get to do my part. And to do an extra session after each session to play with feedback would, it would just increase the cost of doing this course too much. It wouldn't be viable. So I decided that, okay, without raising the price, I'm going to make myself available every 4 sessions, every time we complete the transit through the quarter. Like the sun has now entered the quarter of initiation, and 3 months from now, when it moves into the first Godhead of the quarter of civilization, between one and the other, there will be one of these sessions where we can review your questions in regard to what happened to you, or what was your perception of what was happening during that transit of the sun through the quarter of initiation. Okay, so that we can also use that to have a deeper grasp of what initiation is about, the mind, the development of individual awareness, that this course, is not meant to be a transit course in the sense of, me predicting events. If I think of this in predictive events, I actually would want to quit. I wouldn't want to do the course, It's because I see so much more that is possible, beyond the ability to predict, because truly the only thing that can be predicted is stupidity, because stupidity tends to repeat itself in the most unaware way. And, this is what the program makes kind of predictable, how the worse keeps getting worse, So, for me, this is much more, than predictive work. This is more reflective work. This is me just seeing, reflecting on, the noise of the world and the way I perceive it through the program. And then something that I've learned to focus on when it comes to the not self. You see, I look at everything now through the Godhead. I mean, if you want to come close to the essence of what the not self is all about, and how the not self has its own sense of purpose, that's why, the not self is much more ready to kill, in the name of this and that, than anybody would be ready to do in their own name, So these Godheads, they really permeate everything. And of course, if you really know what they are, then you know how they eat away at the potential for uniqueness that is there in the gates, that are a part of their influence, because they all 4 fall on, into their grip and serve the same purpose of homogenizing human consciousness at all possible Excuse me, in my moving over to this side, I forgot to bring my water with me, just gonna get it. Yeah. So the Godheads, they are at the upfront of this course. That's why it is divided in 16 sections. And with the Godheads, if you're a newcomer, if you're someone, in the sense that you've just completed the general training, you are in your first 7 years of deconditioning. Even if you are a PTL1, a student somewhere, this is a place where you can learn about gates, you can learn about centers, you can learn about polarities, because that's the place where I am, where everything that I'm explaining is basically grounded. So I'm touching all aspects of the body graph mechanics, with the excuse of the program. So, if you expect this to be, a place where you learn to predict, the impact of transits, then this is the wrong place. I just don't use this knowledge in this way. I don't even look at the transits as something that has anything to do with me in my life. Like the name says, the program is not your life. This is humanity's program. And of course, because we are part of the human species, what happens to humanity happens to us as well. And, this is the mind. We too are human, and through the mind, we can resonate to anything that comes from the program. And still, it does not have to define what happens to us individually in our own singular place, space that we occupy on planet Earth, but also, in space. We're all alone in space. We're all just these passengers, traveling the world of form. Okay. The sessions, they will more or less have the same sequence of what you will see me do today. And where I always start with introducing, the notes, because the notes, they set the general theme. Okay. This is the evolutionary direction. Okay. This is where the incarnation program, programs the evolution of our species. Okay, this is the orientation of all the crystals of consciousness that are being conceived, that are being incarnated. Okay, they just think of the human beings that are born. These are the four gates of Hades and Maya, which is the two Godheads where the nodal polarity has recently changed, okay? Which means that nodally, we're going to have the influence of these Godheads incarnating, for about certainly all 2022 and into 2023. Okay, so this is going to be the evolutionary direction for the whole year. Okay, and we just left behind the first step of this, the 2034, where the south and the north node have been for last 3 months. And last month, there was a shift, and they moved into the 14.2. Okay, and this is where we are, where it started this Rave New Year. This is the theme that we're having now. Okay, the direction of survival, and the direction of survival from a deeply holistic point of view, in the sense that the 14 and the and the 8, okay, these two gates, they represent the core. I mean, you can see that they are there in the central column of the power column. And this is the central column of the penta, okay? So this is the spine of the way in which the penta organizes. You know, the way the penta survives, the spirit and the form of each penta. Okay, and through the 14.2, it also represents the way in which every single family fits into its society, fits into its social environment, and is empowered, is recognized, you know, knows how to keep its place. In other words, that these two gates are essential in organizing the way civilization works and the way in which we all fit in, you know, the plane of form, you know, and this is the world of power and the display of power. And, you know, I mean, something that represents this at an archetypal level is, you know, this tension that is there now between, you know, Russia and the United States, you know, old story, very, very old story. Okay, just with their new allies, you know, Russia kind of backed up by China. Okay, the Americans backed up by the UA, you know, old allies, and you know, all this tension coming up there, like in a, you know, if there's something old, it's this kind of stuff. Okay. And yet at the same time, you know, we can see this as something old where, you know, the tension just escalates a little bit and nothing happens, or you never know. I mean, you never know, you know, how close you are to an explosion of, you know, a display of power that triggers chain reactions and catastrophe. I'm not going to make guesses with that, okay? Like, I share my reflections because I know everything is possible. Okay. But I am in no way, will you hear me say, you know, determine this is going to happen or that is going to happen. You know, I think we can use the program to excuse or justify whatever we want, you know, like things are worked out globally. You know, we can see these things, and you always find a representative of this. Okay, but it's, you know, at a scale level, it can manifest, it permeates everything. It permeates everything. And the context with which I am looking at this is, I'm looking at this from the context of someone who is aware that humanity is at the verge of a mutation in the solar plexus. And me being the cross of consciousness, you know, and having the three centers of awareness defined, I'm deeply interested in how, in the connection between them. And it is clear to me, you know, that the solar plexus has always been the engine, the fuel engine of humanity's evolution, of the evolution of our cognitive potential, you know, the development of strategic power, you know, conquering new horizons. And here we are now as nine-centered human beings, and I see us coming right back to the beginning, you know, and this reflectiveness, this ability to see the futility of, you know, all of this strategic intelligence that we have developed, just to, you know, thinking in collective terms. You look at humanity right now, and it's like, you know, so much knowledge for this, you know, so much knowledge for this pathetic fear in the way to interact or react to the emergence of a virus. You know, this collective panic burst out that was there in 2020, you know, just when Neptune was moving into gate 22. you know, into the channel of openness and bringing up, what would be called social distancing. In the one of the three social channels that we have, the one that is specifically defines the protocols of interaction with strangers. It blew my mind like nothing ever did when it comes to the program, to see that the program really is a power that is manifesting in the world, and that it's manifesting in a way in which it clearly is not favoring, our evolution. It seems to be favoring our blindness. It seems to be favoring, this feverish way of thinking that comes when you think in fear, when you think in panic, when you make these decisions like, now you put the masks on, now you shouldn't, now the vaccine is good, now it isn't, it's kind of like this deep dysfunction, is simply what is becoming more and more evident, the dysfunctionality in the way that the world is organized, the dysfunctionality from the top, from the top, and how, it's like the top of the hierarchy has reached a level of incompetence that used to be protected by appearances, and now, even the appearances can't be kept, and there is this outburst of fear and panic because, not knowing who to trust when you can't trust your own authority. You just need to trust someone, whoever tells you that it's okay. I mean, more than ever, human beings seem to be, like many times in the past, ready to think like sheep think when they're afraid. They no longer want to think for themselves. It's just a matter of taking the right party. Um, and I don't think this is gonna get any better. So I'm looking at the program from more from this perspective, okay, than from anywhere else. So this is what we're seeing now. This is what the spotlights are on, okay? Who's gonna make a move? Is anybody gonna make a move? Is there room for negotiations? Or will power display become unavoidable? And this is just the evolutionary direction. I mean, then we will see how the rest of the actors fit in. Neptune in the 22, moving into the 36 in March. Okay, that's gonna keep things hot. We may, I mean, these are anger channels. This is potential volatility. That's why I'm saying, one of the two may sneeze too strongly in the other's ears, and suddenly we may, get to witness this forms of display of power that we thought were left behind, to see who's ready to take it further, who's ready to sacrifice lives. How far are you willing to take madness, old-fashioned madness? I mean, this is the question here, is where are we going? Where are we going? What's the new direction? What's the new normality? Are we going to treat COVID like a normal influenza? But whatever the new normality is going to be, the one thing that is clear is that it's not going to be what it was before this whole thing broke out. That seems to be pretty sure. Okay. So, yeah, well, that's good enough for now. We will look more in detail of this in future sessions. Um, every session, one Godhead will be um, on the on the upfront of the session, because for me, the program, what we call the program, 70% of the weight of the program is carried forward by the sun. It's if you had to describe the energy of the day, sometimes often when I just have an insight of something, and I post it on Facebook, I I normally put, the position of the sun. Sun in this gate, in this line. I put the name of the line, and then I just write, whatever the synthesis is of my insight, okay, about life. Okay, and I have my abstract way of relating it to the line of the sun. I don't necessarily care to explain it. It's kind of a poetic sense, okay? But as a manifester, I have a deep sense of life's drama, manifesting through me, the mood of the day. And I feel this is the sun, okay? And this is what's around in the air, and it's just a natural sequence, really. It is the same. It has the same natural thing to it than saying spring, summer, fall, winter. you know to divide, because these are, in a way, could be the four quarters. To divide the year in 16 Godheads, really. It's a way to break down, the dominating quality that is there within the neutrino ocean, combined with the direction of the nodes. This is basically the quality of the day, because everything else, is just a slower, the outer planets really changing, the flavor of the year, because they are generational planets at a much, much deeper level, at the psychic level, in other words, things that impact on the human mind, but at a much, much deeper level than what is the everyday life. Something that is much more connected to the Mercury, Venus, Mars, the inner planets that go along always near where the sun is. Okay? So that's, and yeah, well, you're going to hear me elaborate on the Godheads. So for those that are not familiar with the Godheads, um, this is also a wonderful chance, to have access to them, um, because it's just an amazing piece of information, and because it really provides, ways to recognize that, if you have done the general training, the Rave ABC, gates in a certain way, how they complete a certain gate through a certain channel, within a certain stream, within a certain circuit, okay? But this is something different, to see gates in the wheel, and to see them in relationship to the gate that follows them and to the one that's before them, the biochemical relationship between gates on the wheel, to learn to deconstruct the hexagram chops, to know what the hexagram chops mean, depending on the level of your knowledge, is can be real door openers. To look at the yin or yang structure of any line within the hexagram before you read it in the Rave I Ching, because it really provides an extra layer of understanding. So there's going to be a lot of elaboration on that, beyond what is obvious. In the Godhead, like Kali, something that becomes so obvious, is when you put the four gates of Kali, the 13, the 49, the 30, and the 55, you move them into the body graph, okay? You really get to see another level of connectivity and interaction between certain aspects, certain human characteristics and other human characteristics, In other words, that when we say that gate 13, is a humanitarian gate, then you can see what fuels that humanitarian nature of gate 13 more than anything else. Okay? And for instance, when you, following the same logic, consider that, the harmonic gate of gate 13 is gate 33, okay, which is the gate of secrets, okay? Now, if you want to know what makes a secret a good secret and what makes a secret an uninteresting secret, these three gates tell you more than anything else, about what makes a secret interesting, what's a juicy secret, and what's a stupid secret, In other words, see, we have to learn to not look at things separately, when we look at a body graph. I mean, yes, it is important to know the circuitry, it is important to know, how channels and streams are designed to function, but every human being is its own unique whole, and you do not get this perfect order of a circuit, okay? So there is all kinds of connections that you can see in people's imprinting, you can have all four Kali gates and not necessarily have your personality sun there. But that this, the moment you have these eyes, then that this is going to be a force, a very powerful force in someone's psyche, in someone's psychological drive. Because, through the Godheads, you can see that gates have a psychology. They have their own sense of homogenized purpose. And that's why, differentiated purpose cannot be accessed unless you go through the form, unless you align with your design, okay? Because it isn't connected to the mind. It doesn't come from the mind, it's something you have to embody. And these Godheads are responsible for making it so damn difficult, okay? My way, to understand things in the wheel is by, polarities. I've learned to master the Rave body graph by being focused on polarities. Just see how everything is balanced out by, its opposing and complement in the body graph. This is how things operate in our nature. This is the way our nature keeps its own balance. We don't have to do it. We are it. We can watch it if we allow it to be. To trust our own nature so deep that we just allow it to be. We allow ourselves to be the surrendered passenger, to be the surrendered personality. Okay. The polarity tells you, everything about the Godhead, See, Kali is about the direction of the past, okay? And you see, the direction of the past comes from relationships. Whose son, whose daughter, who were your grandparents, What is the morality? What were the moral values at the time where your parents made you, where you were brought into the world? Because this is the fundamental morality, and it's the morality around sex. I mean, sex. Why sex? Why is it the morality around sex? Well, because sex, the libido, the sexual drive that operates through the solar plexus has the power to break loyalties, to break commitments. And in breaking loyalties and commitments, it has the power to be a threat to the program. See, the program has a great investment in, implementing this drive in humanity to reproduce genetically, sexually. Okay. And it only, it not only needs to create the drive for that. Okay. But it also needs to create the spirit that will make human beings commit, okay, to those values, and to have a commitment deep enough to be able to resist, the blind power of sex. Sex. I mean, so much about, what we call morality is just trying to control sex and the consequences of sex, because they stand in the way of our relationship with what we think of as paradise, what we think of can make life worth the while. I mean, after all, this is all about old tradition, old spirituality, old mythologies, very old. After all, this is the direction of the past. Gate 13 is the gate of the past. Here this illustration, the forefathers, the forefathers, the I remember. Okay. What you see here, okay, this is just a chop. This is what we call Godhead, okay? This chop here, okay? Just to show you a closer shot of the 4 hexagrams represented in that chop, okay? We will see that until gate 24, there's going to be 4 of such chops, 4 different Godheads, 4 different forces that are designed to fulfill the potential of the quarter of initiation, the purpose fulfilled through mind. Through mind. It was before meeting human design. I spent 7 years in Pune, India with Osho. This man blew my mind in many, many ways. But one of the things he blew my mind the deepest, he shocked me with, was one day when in his lecture, I heard him say that your emotions are just another layer of your mind, Because he was very much a no mind guru, okay? And I was kind of like, with this heavy mind of mine, I was happy to believe that, this is not me, okay? And then my spleen, resonating as a controlling and fearful and caring mind, I was kind of happy to accept that, that isn't me either, but my feelings were like, if there is anything I can trust to be me, it's what I feel, okay? And this guy was telling me that my mind, that was just another layer of my mind. So that really confused me, and it was not something I knew I would know what to do with. Okay? I lived with it, But when I came to human design, and, as over the years, I developed, understanding and mastery over the the wheel, the gates around the wheel, a deeper understanding of the quarters, a deeper understanding of the different sections into which the quarters can be divided, because in the end we have 64 divisions, what we call incarnation crosses. But it was when we came to the Godheads that something in me just, it was like one of those big moments in my development of, being a human design student, because in the end, Ra declared himself the first human design student, and I was obviously, just one of the lucky ones that were just there right after him. So I'm like an older student than you guys. And so happy to share the fascination in being able to understand gates, the themes that operate through the channels, to be able to look at channels through the Godheads, to have that kind of understanding. Well, I guess time does it, I won't be able to share everything that I know about these gates, these Godheads, the way I do. For instance, on Monday I started a 16 Godhead course for a Russian group, with Russian translation. But they do take the greater portion of each of the sessions, because they just are so juicy, and because, like I said, they more closely than anything else describe, the quality of the program as it is in the time in which each of the sessions is realized. Okay. So, there's all kinds of understanding that can be derived, mechanical understanding about these gates. For instance, you can see that this direction of the past, this is the child that incarnates and is just open. When you're born, your mind is open. You take in the sound. That's how we learn the language. We hear Papa and Mama speak. We hear the family speak. We hear the music of, this is collective. This is an absorbing mind. You can see that in newborns, how absorbing they are. Okay? That's every baby that is born into the world, is this pure absorption, pure intelligence, just filtering and taking in, choicelessly, helplessly. This is how we are programmed. This is how we take in tradition. It happens every moment. That's why it's normal. It's not like, oh, this is news. This is something that's just natural. Of course, if you're aware of it, makes a lot of difference than if you just suffer it and you're not aware of it while it's happening. Now, what these four gates have in common, when you look at them here at the hexagram chop level, is that you will see that in every Godhead that we will look, the four lower lines, they are the same. Okay? When you go in the mandala and you divide the mandala in two, from gate 1 here to gate 2 down here, you have 32 gates on this side, where the first line is yang. Everything else is different. And on the other side, it's the opposite. You've got 32 lines where the first line is yin and everything else above is different. Okay? Now, if you split the wheel in 4, which is what we call quarters, what you have is 16 gates where the two lower lines are yang, and then you have oppositely here 16 gates where the two lower lines will be yin. And on the left and the right, you're going to have two groups of 16 gates where the lower lines are yin-yang on one side, yang-yin on the other side. And when you divide these quarters in 8, what you have is 8 groups of 8 gates that have the 3 lower lines in common. It's what it's called trigrams. It so happens that the 8 gates that come out of the G center, okay, if you did the living year design, then you know that they divide the wheel in 8 gates, and the 8 gates of the G center, they are the leading gate of those 8 portions that have the same lower 3 lines in common. Now, when you split those 8 in halves, you get 16 Godheads. And in 16 Godheads, in each Godhead, what you have in common is that the 4 lower lines are the same. Okay? Even though when you look at them in the body graph, you can see that they serve totally different principles. Okay? That the 13, this is about the identity, and this is about behavior. That the 49, this is all about support and need. Okay? Whereas the 30, this is about the desire to share. Okay? And the 55 is all about indecisiveness. But you can see they have something in common. They all three point at the root center. Okay? So that tells you that these are gates that are designed to be able to process stress, to be able to handle stress, and to not allow stress to overwhelm their spirit and their ability to transmit out the loyalty of their spirit to these old principles. The principles of purity. This is about the purity of mind. Okay. Now, what is purity? See, it is also about the impurity of mind. The pure and the impure, you can see that each of these gates, okay, that's how they think. The rejection is the rejection of impurity. The rejection of impurity in who? In the community, the fellowship of man. See, this is the expectation in human beings. Do not feel yourself to be an animal. Here you find all reasons why human beings hate themselves, because they are still not godlike. Now, how pure do you have to be pure? And pure what? If you can't be a pure God, well, maybe being a pure asshole will be enough. And who's to say who is purer, who is the purest? See, this is what this force brings with it. Remember, this is mind, okay? This is mind. Everything that starts at the bottom with the yang and the yin binary, okay? The symbol of mind is the yang, the spirit, wanting to penetrate its own form. If it wasn't, because the spirit needs to penetrate its own form, we would have never developed mind. And you see, mind is precisely an instrument to know what being human is all about. To know the magic of the human spirit and body and the human form is something you can only find within your own form, because your own spirit is the only human spirit you can know firsthand. Your own spirit is the only human spirit whose purity you can measure. You know? And yet, because these are four gates that participate in four channels that are projected elements in our nature, not only projected elements, but because they're part of the solar plexus, and the solar plexus is so deeply connected to our social life, okay, that this is, the backstage of our social life. What we do not necessarily want to show everyone, our instincts, our social instincts, our sexual instincts, how we are, who we really are when we lose control of our spirit and we manifest our feelings relentlessly with the purity of a Kali that doesn't hold back. She doesn't hold back her pleasure. She doesn't hold back her pain. That's why these are bitterness channels. They're not meant to be, as hot-headed as, the channels that you will see in the next Godhead when we look at Mitra, okay, which are the solar plexus gates that point upwards. Channels that are designed to manifest the wave. No, these are channels that are designed to contain the wave, be the wave, not act out the wave, feel the wave, be the wave. In other words, purity is something you've got to be for yourself. Or is it, the appearance of purity? And how much of your purity is appearance? How much of your purity is true? See, this is all about moral purity. Remember, it's mind. This is the foundation of all human shoulds. Everybody should. Nobody should. This is the sin and the virtue. This is the fuel for, making the 10 commandments for Christians. Every religion has its list of commandments, its list of shoulds and should nots. Okay. And this is the social root of this. How do you live your life on the daily plane without losing, your faith, your devotion, your purity in regard to those principles. Okay, so this is about, of course, purification. In other words, you sin, you forgot to follow the rules, you got drunk, you lost, you repent. There is a price to be paid. Okay, every religion has its, you regret, you ask for forgiveness. There is so much human misery that is there in this purity trip. This is about, nurturing in humans this assumption that we are above the animal. That we are special, that we are made in God's image. This is part of the development of our strategic intelligence. This is what fueled our intelligence to develop in strategic ways to raise us to the top of the food chain. Never forget the connection of gate 49, to resources, to material resources. That the mystical way is rooted in sacrifice. We sacrifice children, we sacrifice animals, we sacrifice gods. If they don't provide what we need, we believe in the gods that provide what we need, that provide the power of our tribe to survive as a species. This is the most powerful God. In other words, that, we created gods in our own image. We created gods that would explain, the manifestation of our killer monkey nature, We learn to kill, conquer in the name of God, in the name of king, in the name of country, in the name of all kinds of holy blah, 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 blah. When we speak about the mind of purity, you know, there is a holiness about, and this is the spiritualizing of human suffering, the spiritualizing of human misery, the spiritualizing of human ignorance, in the sense that these are forces that can deeply, deeply hold on to all kinds of superstitions from the past, and whether those superstitions are religious, esoteric, spiritual, like the belief in black magic, this is the belief in magic, but not necessarily the ability to feel the magic, to be the magic, to understand, that in a way magic is ordinary and natural the moment your spirit is not boxed in the mind. Okay. In other words, yeah, this is a force that is, as a mechanic, you see, its true potential is to recognize, to be the spirit, to be the intelligence that recognizes who you commune with, you know, who you commune with, not because they agree with you every time you speak, but because of, what establishes their priorities, their list of priorities in how they live out their daily life, the daily life. These are projected, emotional projected forces. They're designed to live in deep communion with others. Communion is non-verbal communication, a level of trust and confidence that, disagreement can only be about something superficial, something that doesn't matter really. Okay. Because at the bottom line, there's a communion of spirits, you know there is a communion of like-minded spirits, like-minded spirits. Okay, it is about the spirit. The mind is just how the spirit reveals itself to the witness, to the passenger. How the mind reveals your spirit to yourself when you become the perfect passenger for your mind. Okay. I need to go to the bathroom, but it's also a good moment to take a 5-minute break. So I'll be right back in 5 minutes. see, okay, the only thing that really makes each of these four Kali gates different is embodied by what they carry in their fifth and in the sixth line. Quite something to think about, that, when you think of the not self life, uniqueness doesn't start until the fifth line. That's why it is the line of the heretic. That's why the potential to be someone that steps out and learns to live by the power of its own authority. It's following its own rules. That deconditioning, that freeing yourself from the grip of the program, in the sense of freeing yourself, being able to transcend it. Being able to see beyond it, in that sense. It's not like you can free yourself from it and not be conditioned by it, but you can free yourself in, taking any of what it does personal and see that it is just life. The program is the nature of things, It's the way things are designed on planet Earth. It's how things are designed to manifest in the homogenized world. But it does not have to be what defines your attention, your movie, and the quality of your individual awareness. Strategy and inner authority is the protection you have to not just get stuck in the program, to be able to develop your own world, by the consistency of the decisions that you make for yourself, and not be distracted by the noise of the world. This is February 2nd, normally I will do the sessions pretty much in the beginning of each new Godhead. I just needed a break. That's why this one started when the sun is already transiting the second of Kali gates. But, interesting to consider. That is why I always include the mandala, okay, where the prenatal calculation is there to see, what kind of human beings were born during this week. If when you take the red and the black separate in their design, you will see that the personality has all this openness. But when you bring the red and the black together, you will see that this is going to be someone very, very, very fixed in their design. One of the interesting things for me of doing this work is to think of these charts as, the design of people, that one day will be 30 years old in their Saturn return, that one day will be 40 years old and they will be in charge, they will be in power, that this is an information that is manifesting in the world now. On the 2nd of February, okay, this 13, this fellowship of man, this openness in the interaction, okay. But you can see what this openness is. It is an openness to the secrets of the other. It is an openness of the stress, okay? The stress that comes from the root, how we keep it the secret that we are under stress, that we have a problem, that we are weak. Because if other people know we are weak, they can take advantage of this. If other people know what we want, they can get in the way. If other people know what we hate, they can interpret it this or that way. So this is about listening to the secrets and listening also secretly, in the sense that if you consider there is a Kali listening, and you are expressing, your problems and what created those problems, gate 13 is hearing you, but they're also thinking this is too much, and this is too much, and that is too much, and that shouldn't be. They're not necessarily telling you. They're not necessarily telling you, But this is what's there in the program now. There is this, okay, I listen, but it does not mean I agree. Okay, and behind that listening, there is not only moral judgment, there is actually moral condemnation, moral condemnation. You are this, you are that, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, That's what's there in the ambiente. The demand that everyone should be purer than they are, not human, not helpless, not the idea of the human that is godlike that we would like to see, the human that you would like to present to your grandma, the penta, the fitting into tradition, okay? Someone that is civilized enough that you can take them and introduce them to your grandma, And yet, these gates, you come to gate 49, which is where the sun is now. This is a gate of rejection. We call it a gate of rejection. Okay. And, well, you can see why, because, the polarity of it all, okay, this is duality. This is about establishing formal bonds. Formal bonds determined, by homogenized moral behavior. It's your grandma. Kiss your grandma. Kiss your auntie. Don't talk like this to your mother. There is certain moral rules that are ready-made. But see, Kali, there is this theme of rejection. I don't want to be your niece. I don't like to be your daughter. I don't like to be your grandchild. I don't want to kiss. I have no pleasure in it. And this is the purity of the wave. The purity is in being politically incorrect. Politically incorrect. In other words, to really draw punishment or consent. Punishment or consent. See, these themes, they're played out in our childhood. All children know if something's going to happen if they refuse to follow. So, this is a game that is established in every home. And this fear of rejection, its polarity is gate 4, This is the rejection of not understanding and not being understood. Not understanding yourself, not knowing how you feel. See, this is moodiness. This is the rejection to interact. This is the leave me alone. This is the leave me alone or listen to me. This is the leave me alone or listen to me. Because that's, that it is an emotional gate. It is there to initiate. It is there to deliver a message. It is there to learn a message through experience, through refreshing of the feeling, and then deliver the message to others. This is about the principles, the beauty of the principles. Leave me alone with your principles. I got my own principles. And, if you really want to be in communion with me, then this is what my principles are. So this is a time where, it's kind of like everybody is impatient. Everybody is more ready to deliver their own stuff and take less stuff from others, In other words, this avoidance of confrontation and truth that half of the world is constantly living in this time where the sun is transiting the 6 gates of the solar plexus that are in the quarter of initiation, that all this game is challenged, In other words, once a year, the program kind of like goes around and says, okay, let's lift the carpet, and let's look at, the shit that has accumulated between us and the world around us and the ones that we love, which normally are the ones that we hate. In other words, lift the carpet and look at, how much shit has gathered around the way you represent yourself, the way you represent the truth of what you are for yourself, in how you interact with those around you, but those closest to you. This is not about interaction with strangers. This is about the interaction with those that supposedly you are in communion with. Supposedly they are, you can trust them with your life. Supposedly they can trust you with your life. And yet, they tend to be the ones where, all the impurities, get not expressed necessarily, under the disguise of patience, tolerance, whatever, But this is where, in avoiding confrontation, false communion, false devotion can hang on for very long, unnoticed, and well, this is the time of the year when the spark is there, to make anybody's Kali spirit, it's everybody's demands on others raised to its maximum standards, which means that this is a time where the program makes us all focus on what is least satisfying in our personal connections. You understand? This is the time where, we're coming close to the mating season, And in coming close to the mating season, you see, this is the program fooling us and making everybody that is a stranger more attractive and more interesting and more godlike than the people we already know. Because the people we already know, we see their shortcomings. We see what we reject in them. We see what they reject or resist in us. You understand? So there is this drive, this Kali drive to really want to cut each other's neck, kind of like throw the baby out with the baby water, kind of like, because when Kali, Kali is famous for its destructive dance. Once it loses control, you see, it has to appease its spirit, and it will not until nothing moves, because everything that moves is just to be destroyed. It's kind of like burn it all down to ashes. The husband of Kali survived her because he knew how to play dead when she was. Yeah, well. I had the drive to break up with my partners, I'm a 1-3, so, breaking bonds for me is something natural. But this time of the year, I've always felt, how that the fuel, the drive for that was just empowered by the program. It's the way things work. It isn't even necessarily something bad. It is one of the ways in which the spirit of desire, the spirit of the sensitivity, the spirit of the passion is renewed. It has to be refreshed. This is the one chance for drama. If we can't avoid living in drama, at least let's have it clean. Let's have a mature drama. Let's have an enriching drama. Let's have a drama where we can really see ourselves, ourselves dealing as gracefully as we can, with our human paradoxes. Whatever your emotional, whichever way you are designed to mature through the emotional experience, which basically means being yourself with others. I mean, knowing yourself is a great thing, but it's just the start. Knowing how to be yourself with others. This is what I love about human design, that knowing yourself is not sitting, somewhere with closed eyes in this void, in this humming void. No, it's knowing yourself in real time while you walk the world, while you walk the line with others, while what you are for yourself and what you present to others, is recognizably the same, at least for you who's living it out from the inside. You are the one that's meant to get the satisfaction of it. You're the one that's meant to enjoy the peace of it. You're the one that's meant to learn to recognize the success of being capable as a projector, to live in serendipity with others, See, the 30 is a gate of desire, the recognition through feelings, and it's always, a feeling that determines what you desire. But see, it is a desire of the past. It is a desire that is deeply, deeply determined by the homogenized morality of Kali. Its polarity, the 29, this commitment in the penta, this one, the one, this is the desire to find the one, to be somebody's one, the monogamy thing. I was pondering these days, how much monogamy is a killer for the human libido. And with the human libido, I don't just mean the readiness and the ability of the human libido to have a diversified sexual experience. No, I mean the readiness of using sensitivity, desire, and love as fuel for emotional maturation through diversified experience, sexual or not. In other words, to learn to live in alignment with the wave, which is basically what keeps your life interesting, what keeps desire being an interesting movie, what keeps passion being an interesting movie, because it is not connected to any sort of sexual exclusivity, And I'm not making here apology of polygamy, I'm not. Just about, the fact that this is nine-centered beings, purpose is the experiential way. And gate 30 is part of what is known as the human way. It is keynoted as the gate of the fates. To suffer your fate, trapped in, the homogenized dynamics of relationships, where in trying to be somebody's one, there's always the other one, there's always the two. And sometimes you may be the one, sometimes you are going to be, the whole jealousy thing, being someone's object of desire, having someone as your own object of desire, and thinking that that's what the love journey is all about, rather than embracing, what the stream of feelings brings, which is diversified experience. Maturation through experience, not necessarily, through committed and homogenized relationships. To meet your own fate, to meet a differentiated fate, to not, to explore, your libido as a way in which your spirit, your individual spirit, manifests in how you feel about yourself being in life. In where desire is not connected to the other, where desire is connected to the experience of being yourself with many others, with whoever happens to be there on the outside, where it's about the experience that you get. And the experience is an experience of yourself, an expanded experience of yourself, an initiation, because it is a gate of initiation. When desire is something that leads to an experience that expands the horizon of the awareness that you have of what is of value to you in being human and in being able to share that human quality with another human. But it's about the quality and it's about the sharing. The other, can be anyone. It isn't as personal as we like to make it. So, you can see there is this, not only gate 30 is there. Okay, we have these two gates, the 37 and the 22, Jupiter and Neptune there in the program. And these two gates, they're much more prone to act on the wave as the wave happens. They're not as reflective as these Kali gates are. They're designed to slow down the solar plexus, reflect. There's recognition that there is no truth in the now. That in the now, all you get is an idealized perception of the other or a demonized perception of the other because of, the mood, because of the way the circumstance manifests. So, clarity here always comes over time. Clarity can only come when time brings evidences. In other words, see, communion cannot be based on a one-time agreement in a conversation. Communion with someone is when you find yourself to be comfortable with the same person in very opposite circumstances, and not necessarily only easy ones, positive ones. When you can go through adversity with someone without taking off on each other, that is not something that comes easy with everyone. When there is stress, it's easy to recognize, who you don't like, who you can't really have around, who does not seem to add anything for you in that circumstance. And when in that circumstance, there is actually someone that makes a difference for you, oh, do you notice? And they notice too. Okay. And this is the kind of, see, it's beyond the bond, really. This is beyond bonding. It's communion. And because it's in communion, there is no formality really around it. There is no compelling, there is no duty towards each other. Not at first. That's what makes it so magical. The purity of that love, the purity of that sensitivity, the purity of that shared feeling. That's what makes it so magical. But to keep it magical, that takes being able to let go, let go of judgment, Let go of premature conclusions. Let go of premature, condemning based on appearances, one-time appearances. See, you have to wait for appearances to repeat, or you have to wait for appearances to contradict themselves. You meet someone and they are totally normally dressed like you. And then you meet them in another circumstance and they're totally dressed up, and if it's a woman, maybe wearing some makeup, kind of totally different way of manifesting whatever sex appeal may be there. In the end, you can find it seductive, you can find it repelling, but what I mean to say is that you meet appearances that you meet people, and in meeting them, you meet appearances that reaffirm what you saw last time, or question or challenge what you saw last time, or add a quality, a nuance to what you saw the previous time. And you need to wait long enough to be able to have a sense of contrast. Contrast means the best and the worst, the human and the beast. They always go together. You cannot overcome the human beast. It's only a matter of how well are you at hiding it. We all learn from our childhood to hide it. Okay? So these Kali gates, they're great at sniffing it out. They suspect it. Okay? They know it's there. They somehow know. And they know because, I guess, I don't have any of these 4 Kali gates. I'm actually, I have the 3740, the 3635. I hate to hide. I'm so fucking shameless in the way I present myself. I'm at the opposite end of what these Kali gates are about. They can be so shameful. They can conceive so much shame, okay? Because they aspire to an ideal, the idea that carries the spirit. And if it carries the spirit, it is human. It's still human. But if it does not carry the spirit, then it is vomitable. Then it is, the dislike is, you can't touch it. You can't even almost think of it. That's why these gates have these names, It's the most desirable, or it would make you throw up. And think of how often, we get to experience both ways with the same person. This is what these gates are about. Okay? And when they operate as a servant of Kali, this is where one moment you idealize someone, okay, to sublime levels, and the next moment you want to cut their balls off. You want to dehumanize them. And in no moment have you really see them as they really are. Just another human being trapped in their paradoxes. We're all helplessly trapped in our own paradoxes and conflicts, and we're the only ones who can really liberate ourselves from them. It's an inside process to wake up and to consciously work on freeing yourself from the veils of illusion. Here in the 3rd week with the sun, now this is the 4th week with the sun already moving in gate 55. This is about the sleeping phoenix, the dream of happiness. Okay, that in the not self is so much, happiness for 2. Okay, and that's why, funny that it comes with, the moon in the moment of the sun entering the 55. The moon is in gate 6, The Earth is in gate 59, okay? So it's a great moment for making babies, okay? And if you want to know how we came to call sexual activity love making, okay, then this polarity clearly explains why. Gate 55 is a gate of potential love. Love experienced as a potential for passion, which means this is mundane love. This is love that can turn into hate. Okay? And it is a love and a hate that is deeply connected to sexual identity, to reproduction, to having sex. I mean, it's an incredible gift, but it is also the place where love has forever put chains on human beings. Chains, that in the attachment to that sexual experience, the attachment not only to the sexual experience, to the emotional experience. And orgasm is an emotional experience. Everything connected to pleasure and pain is an emotional experience. I am someone that's convinced that orgasm is behind, the mystical drive of humans. The ability to project, the magic of God, a force superior, the recognition that we are more than just this physical body, that all of that is deeply, deeply rooted in, the power of orgasm to inspire our spirit to know things that we don't know why we know. We cannot mentally explain them, I mean, we cannot mentally explain them. Think of, this is a gate of mind. It's what we would like to know. What is the spirit? What is the spirit? Gate 55, abundance. What is the spirit of abundance? And you can see where the 55 shows us the way. It says, it's in the form. It's in the form. It's in the individual form. It's in the way each individual conducts themselves as a male, as a female, who they bond with in love, who they become one with, who they reproduce themselves through. This is what's going to be empowered. But it's in the form, and in the form is where human design shows us to look for it. This is what the strategy and the authority is. It's a way to look for the spirit within yourself. Every mental dilemma of the 4 types is a way to look for the spirit within your own form, and it comes to you in the shape of your signature, a generator that waits to respond, connects to their individual spirit in that moment. It's a mechanic, and you can see it here in the biochemical structure of the hexagram chop of the 55. This is what spirit is. Well, this is where and how it can be found in each of us. Okay? So far, what this gate has brought, this is a gate that is part of the cross of the sleeping phoenix, is this homogenized dream of love, this homogenized dream of romantic love, where, you expect to find someone that loves you more than you love yourself. To find someone that loves in you all the stuff you hate in yourself. You think you're imperfect. You know you're impure, but you want someone else to think that you're pure. You want someone else to think that you're beautiful. You want someone else to think about you the stuff that you can't believe yourself. So, even if you found such a person, which is difficult, you wouldn't be able to believe them, because it's, the The point of gravity is misplaced on the outside. You know, it's only when you love yourself, you know, no matter what you see within yourself, no matter, you know, how much bad you see to balance out the good, okay, that you can find someone on the outside open and capable of mirroring that balance back at you. You know, when purity, instead of the expression of your individual balance, becomes the expression of an idea, then, you know, it does not matter who you're dealing with, what you're contemplating on. What you see is too human to be loved, too human to be accepted, too human to be turned on by it, you know? And this is the shadow of Kali. You know, this emotional bitterness, kind of like, you know, tired of people. You know, I've seen too much of the same. You know, it's like, oh, this is like other ones. You know, these are deep, deep, deep veils in how we look at others socially. You know, when they have the same distortive power in making us idealize some as they have in making us demonize others. Okay, and because all of this is happening or has been happening with the channel of charisma there at the unconscious level, okay, that all of this can easily be acted out, you know, and become real-time drama, you know, and there's only one way out there. It's basically, you know, come back to your own shit. Come back to your own shit. I mean, this is what I learned in human design, that it's much, much healthier to deal with your own shadow than to live and struggle with someone else's, or to live burdened by someone else's, challenged by someone. It's like you come to grips with your own shadow, you find balance within yourself, and you learn to discern in a much more clearer way who adds and empowers that balance, who adds to the refinement of that balance, and who is an agent of distortion for you. Okay? So here, you know, in the last week of this force, you have, you know, this, you're going to have the most dramatic expression of Kali, you know, either someone who does not respect boundaries and wants to, you know, wants to have intimacy with you right away, you know, or someone that, you know, puts, you know, very, very straight barriers, okay? Or at least this is the perception that we can have because of the input of the program, okay? So, you know, this is a moment to enjoy being in the flow with any social circumstance that you're in, and be sure that you're not looking to change your social scenario, you know, during this time. You know, that you're not drop boyfriends or girlfriends, that, you know, you're not going to cross any red line, you know, with strangers, you know. Just give yourself the time to be acquainted with whatever you may not like about them, you know, before you cross that line. In other words, make sure that, you know, you're not identifying with some fata morgana thinking that you finally found the ideal, and do not try, you know, to separate yourself from your own demons by dropping your boyfriend, you know, cutting the bond with the people who are maybe just a mirror, you know, where you become aware of them. That's pretty much what the ambiente is, you know, for this month of February, until we meet again. I think it's on somewhere on the, let me see, 20 seconds. Nope. On March 1st, okay, we'll be looking at Mitra, but I think that it will already be a few days that the sun has already entered Mitra, which is where Jupiter is now. Okay. Besides the Godhead, every week I will take a look at the outer planets, and depending on their behavior, focus more on one or the other. Okay. Mitra, as you will see in the next session, those of you that will be there, is the goddess of questions. Okay. It's the goddess, therefore, of uncertainty, because as you will see, the questions of Mitra are not questions that can be just solved by providing an answer. Okay. And each of the four Mitra gates has its own question. And the question of the 37 is, will I ever have all that I need? And well, you can, by knowing this question, why this 37 is a gate that is part of the channel of the bargain, and why this channel of community, one of the three social channels, is called the channel of the bargain, because, the bargain is established around me getting what I need or not. The affection of gate 37 is very straightforward. Give me what I need, and you have a loyal friend. Okay, that this is all about the stomach. This is not about the rational intelligence. Okay, like in the case of Kali, this is a communion that is so much based on non-verbal language. Not something that can be justified by experience. This is deep level communion. Or not. They are very, very distressful gates when they do not find that communion with someone. They can really, really suffocate under, how much emotional pressure they can hold inside themselves and try to keep, detached from everything while they're drowning in shit on the inside. It's amazing. It's, in a way, I admire, people who can hold their own feelings back so much, before they let anything out, because I'm so much at the opposite end of that spectrum as an emotional manifestor. And I have nothing in those gates. So Jupiter, the lawgiver, that this is where, when you have Jupiter in this gate, then what's up there. It's like, who's the best better? Who gives me more for less? Remember, this is nice. The affection, the love comes from the 40. It is gate 40 that selflessly provides or not. Okay, gate 37 cannot help but have its stomach simply be happy, to be filled when it was empty. So this is a time of very straightforward negotiations. Okay, that can, it can take the romance away from friendship or affection, and it's this thing of you're doing this for something. Yes, why not? There's nothing wrong in wanting something in return. There's nothing wrong in being able to establish clear conditions for, why you would want to make yourself available for someone, for something. Why would you want to dedicate some of your life, some of your time to, someone for something? But see, this is not about you. Actually, those of you that have the hanging gate 40 in the open ego, this pressure, to prove your value to everyone, could manifest the impact of this transit by, you trying to provide for everyone's demands, to find that, friends are more demanding than usual. And if you don't know that, suddenly, just suffer this readiness of yours to make sacrifices for nothing in return, making other people's needs as important as yours, and suffer the syndrome of the open heart center. So watch out. Pretty much on the 18th, okay, so when the sun is entering already the last of the Kali gates, Jupiter moves on to gate 63. This is a gate of my cross of consciousness. It's a gate of doubt. And when you look at the Rave Mandala, let me take you there for a moment. In the quarter of initiation, you have gate 13, and then you have 3 emotional gates. Well, actually 4, okay? 4 emotionally projected gates. Then you have gate 63, a mental pressure gate, and then you have another 2 emotional gates, but in this case, gates 22 and 36, that are the 2 emotionally manifested gates, therefore gates of anger rather than gates of bitterness and resentment. Okay, and well, like with many other things, my understanding, my insight of this mechanic developed only over time. And knowing, as I did from the beginning, that, manifestors, we are the old movie. The 36 and the 25 and the 22 way of processing the emotional wave, everything out, manifest the wave, that this is the old way. The new way is the projector way. The new way is the no truth in the now way. The new way is that don't react, reflect, transcend. Don't react to people's bullshit. Don't react to people's frustration. Don't react to people's anger. Don't magnify people's shit. Deal with your own. Stay with your own. Now that's power. That's such an incredible power. Through the power of reflection, to come to know the shadow of the other. And in knowing the shadow of the other, to know how to speak to their consciousness, bypassing their shadow, bypassing their bullshit. That's projector guidance. That's the true potential of emotional clarity, of knowing someone, of being emotionally clear about someone's connection to someone else. And see, this transition from manifest the wave, to projector, self-reflected consciousness, the transition from one to the other came from this gate 63, the gate of doubt. That maybe if I no longer feel what I was feeling yesterday, then maybe I shouldn't take my feelings that seriously. Remember, like what I told you in the beginning about me hearing Osho say, your emotions are just another layer of your mind. And me going like, what? But it's true. It's true. It is the deepest layer of mind. It is in a way, it is the mind of your spirit, the mind of your spirit, the spirit of your mind, the spirit of your mind. The spirit that has always driven your mind. And if you give it time and you don't draw premature conclusions based on what you're thinking now, you may gather incredible depth of insight about what really matters in life. Not what seems to matter now, but what really matters over time. Now, this is, if there is a place where emotional intelligence was born, was here. Doubt. The most intellectual of all gates, the triple yang yin, the most mental of all gates. So this is Jupiter, this is our lawmakers, okay? So do expect a lot of changes, back and forth, like, we said this, but now we're not going to do like this. We're going to do this the other way around, and, like what we have been seeing so much of, but kind of like speeded up more because until, during last year, Jupiter was moving through the Kali gates, and Kali gates are intense, but they move slow. Okay, this is much more volatile energy, okay, that can lead, of course, to excess and to having to say, I'm sorry, to, things you have to take back, normally have created, embarrassment. They broke something, there is potential explosions, firework and overacted drama, this kind of things, And another thing is, that when the sun moves through the solar plexus, this is no truth in the now. This is really a time for uncertainty, and learn to love your questions was one of the first things that Ra told me in analyzing my design, that it so transformed my life from that moment on, No truth in the now. Don't trust your mental certainties. Don't trust the promises of your time. Don't trust what the appearances. This is a time where, listen, but don't believe what you hear. See, don't believe what you see. Wait until it all comes back, transformed, because we're all adrenalized in our emotionality, So, yeah, our attachment to drama and the drive of whatever is hidden in our spirit to manifest, it's there, ready to take the first opportunity to be sneezed out as drama, like what someone was just sharing there about, the moment of conflict and crisis and someone's dumping someone. This is the time of the year when that heats up. Saturn is in gate 13, so it deeply underlines the theme of Kali. It adds heaviness to it. Okay. I will comment on, Uranus on our next meeting. I want to finish today's sessions by, just adding something about Pluto, because Pluto really is the last big change in the program. It has been in gate 61 for the last 3 years plus, okay? Since the times of Donald Trump, he was the one that came up with alternative facts. In other words, where truth was no longer measured by fact, not even the homogenized truth of the not self, okay? And that was kind of like an announcement of the 61. The 61 is one of the locks for the evolutionary keys of the evolutionary cycle that we are in, that we have been in since 1610. The cross of planning. The cross of Maya was one of the locks. But after 2027, it will no longer be there. Okay, so in a way, in these last 3 years, the key of knowledge as power has kind of disappeared. The one thing that became clear is we don't know. We really don't know. Nobody knows. In other words, we became clear of how ignorant we are. You know, that how limited what we can do with what we know is. You know, a small and invisible virus is enough to make us panic, to make the world collapse, you know, and to bring up so much misinformation that nobody really knows who to believe, who to trust, who knows, who's saying the truth. So, you know, these years, I don't think in no time in our evolutionary past has humanity so deeply become aware of its own ignorance as in the years in which Pluto has been transiting gate 61, you know, kind of like killing all of our ideas of why we would, you know, admire the human genius of others, you know. Now it has, and by the way, you know, here you have, I underlined here the four gates of the keepers of the keys, which are the four gates that Pluto will be transiting until 2027. And you have them down here in the root as well. Okay. So there's something deeply hidden that's cooking and that's taking our species towards that mutation. But while Pluto was in the 61, that mutation was operating at the mental level, at an awareness level. Since halfway June this year, okay, Pluto has moved into the first line of gate 60, and it will be there for the next 3 years plus. It will go backwards into the 61 for some time, but it will just keep coming back to the 60 and moving deeper and deeper into the structure of this new hexagram. Okay? And, well, you know, gate 60, you know, gate 61 is an essential gate when it comes to the, you know, shaping our human awareness. It is in the channel of awareness. But gate 60, you know, gate 60 is the foundation in a way of human life in the form. Limitation. Limitation. You know. When you have your personality sun in limitation, you are born with the cross of the laws. You have the 360, and the 360, you see, everything rests on the 360, everything. And what I mean with everything is, on one side, you know, that's why I included these two graphics, just to give you a sense of these things, you know. Here on the left, this is the design of the single cell, okay? So every single cell is a fixed pattern. That's the nature of its cell. And it has this little tail, which is the hanging third gate, which is the potential of the cell to mutate. Okay, every cell in every living being has this design. Okay, so the whole structure of life in the form is under pressure by the very presence of Pluto in gate 60, our bodies, you know? Gate 60 is the gate of acceptance, the acceptance of limitation as the first step in transcendence. But you see, the not self is all about rejection. Rejection is what drives the human process. The strategic development of human consciousness is fueled by rejection. We reject to be limited. We reject not to understand. We reject those who don't believe in the answer that we are giving them. We call them negationists. If they doubt the value of the vaccine, we call them anti-vaccine. They're not anti, they're just saying they're not clear. Well, That's not good enough for Kali, the 49 and the 4. They're a polarity. It's an archetypal theme. We humans reject not to understand. And this is what gate 63 is. Doubt. Doubt means my understanding is not complete. Now, if understanding is not complete, strategic understanding cannot determine what the best course of action is. And the moment the not-self cannot choose what the course best of action is, oh my God, it is faced with its helplessness and incompetence, which is the worst thing for the not-self. If you're helpless and incompetent, then you are like dogs. Then you are like animals. Then you have no free will. Then, then the whole thing has failed. Do you understand? It's the one thing that the not-self rejects, not understanding. And understanding is fueled on the denial of limitations. We are free. We are made in God's image. There is no limit for us. We can reach Mars. We can reach Pluto. Very old story. Very old story. Okay, so just like Pluto has been showing us the limit, how deeply limited our awareness is, Pluto in gate 60, in the next 3 years, I'm afraid is going to show us how deep our limitation is to be able to come up with a new order, which is what gate 3 does, a new world order. You see, that's why what we're seeing when we look at the news is, it's just seeing an old, very old movie being replayed, same old opponents, same old threats, same old, So, let's see how it plays itself out this time, but it does not seem like any new order is going to come out of that. What this is, the only new thing really that this is bringing is that there is new actors coming into play, that are embodying what is called extremism. In other words, the true anti-vaccines and the true pro-vaccines that are really making all the noise, interpreting what the two old players, major players are playing out. It's just the noise is different, but it's a very, very old movie, and I'm afraid that what we're going to see is how much the not-self world is being moved by inertia. In other words, the inability to avoid the functionality of the world to keep it, that it is slowing down the functionality, and it is going to become more and more challenging to keep a certain range of normality. In other words, that the abnormalities that, COVID brought up, can be, there may be other abnormalities that are triggered by, some war breaking out somewhere, stuff like that, like more dysfunction adding to more tension, adding to more density on the mundane plane, because you see the 360 isn't just, Pluto in gate 60 isn't just pressuring human cells. See, the 515 within the penta, this is the rhythm of groups. This is the rhythm of families, This is the rhythm of the way in which humanity is organized in civilization. The timing of buses, the efficiency of bureaucracy, that all of this is going to become much more dense, much more dysfunctional. This is where we saw that the nodes are, the direction of the world. the direction of the world, that there is no new direction, that the only direction that seems viable is to come back to something old. We're not going to see anything new, any new world order. We're going to be seeing scenarios that remind us of scenarios that we thought we left behind. Some of them that we thought would not be possible anymore. Somewhere down this year, Neptune is going to move from gate 22 into gate 36. Okay. And, ever since I saw what Neptune did to humankind, since it entered gate 22 in the beginning of 2020, bringing up the whole thing of social distancing. Okay. Something in me went like, oh my God, this is bad news. See, it reminded me of when I met Human Design in 1993. I was part of the drug culture. And I had, like I said earlier here, I had been for 7 years with Osho. And in those years that I was with Osho, I had given up everything. I had even given up smoking cigarettes. I wasn't drinking. I was just meditating. I kind of became a bit of a Puritan, And then meeting Ra, I basically became, the day I smoked my first joint that was coming from somewhere else, totally different, nothing to do with Ra. It changed my life because I decided not to go to work, go with my friends, the one that I had accepted the joint from, after 8 years of not smoking, and went to a full moon party where I met Ra for the first time. Incredible synchronicity with drugs and my relationship to drugs. So at some point, a year later or so, I was simulating the impact of Human Design in my life. And, I always had used drugs as a social thing, to take with some friends and to have some laugh. It never occurred to me to take a drug, to just hang in with myself, because Ra himself was such an archetype of this kind of, of way of dealing with drugs. I somehow felt tempted, to challenge my own fear of whether I would be capable of, meeting the forces in this way, or if I would just freak out, So I had these essential mushrooms, okay? And I remember taking them there on a wonderful, I think it was full moon night. It was all planned, of course. I was hanging alone there in the garden in the middle of the field, the campo in Ibiza. And, I went through many, many stages. But I remember that there was a moment where I was just having this deep, deep, deep crying, just crying. And this sorrow, and in my spirit, I was seeing myself tell my friends, tell the people I love, tell my family, I'm sorry. I wish I had better news for you. Your dreams will never come true. Your dreams are just dreams, and they will never come true. And I just felt this, what to do, man. I wish I had something better to say, but, if you can accept that dreams are just dreams, then maybe it's, if you do depend on dreams becoming true in order to be happy, and what you can do to make yourself happy on a daily basis, maybe that's a lot better. So that feeling that I had then, something similar to that, I had when I realized, oh my God, this Neptune is going to go into the 36. And I had the sense of, I am a 36, 35. I know that so much good can come out of the 36, the richness of experience. I'm no fool. So much growth, so much development, so much insight in my life I have gained from my emotional drama, my outbursts of anger, my, doing what Ra was calling at some point dirty work. Dirty work, just being an agent for cathartic display of emotions. So that's what it smells like to me, that this volatility can lead to, some cathartic display of emotions, which basically means aggressiveness. And aggressiveness, that can easily express itself as violence or be a trigger for someone else's violence. So yeah, I think we're up for a hot year, no doubt, in the international scenario. Then what defines the quality of our own lives on a daily basis does not have to be that. Strategy and authority really is the only protection we have. Good that it is also the only protection we need. So, I wish you all to dearly hold on to yours and enjoy the flow of your movie wherever that happens to be. I want to thank you all for being here and, as always, providing me with this wonderful opportunity to express myself and enjoy the pleasure of sharing my understanding of these mechanics with you. I hope you have enjoyed it. I I did. I did try my best. Okay. Bye for now, and I look forward to meet those of you that are called to be there next time when we meet for the Mitra session. Bye for now. Hasta la vista, amigos. Thank you.